Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
In the Upper West Side.
Blowing a hole in one Canadian economy. Carney and Eby's billion-dollar headache. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Deeper than the headlines.
The answers you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The Prime Minister likes to say he's on a mission to build one Canadian economy. And Canada's premiers say they're all willing to play along, but there's a problem, and it's in British Columbia. That's where BC Ferries, a provincial crown corporation that provides passenger ferry service all along the West Coast, awarded a multi-billion-dollar contract to build 4 new passenger ferries. The problem is they're not going to be built in Canada. The contract was awarded to a shipyard in China, owned by a massive state-run conglomerate. Canadian bidders didn't even bother. They say they can't compete with the low-wage Chinese shipyards. The problem for the Carney Liberals in Ottawa is that these ships will be built with the help of a low-cost $1 billion loan from the Federal Infrastructure Bank. And that's not going over well in some corners of political Ottawa. Even though MPs are on their summer holiday, a special meeting was called yesterday of the Commons Transport Committee because Conservative and Bloc MPs are demanding to know more. Dan Albus is a Conservative MP from British Columbia. He said taxpayers deserve answers.
We find out through the media that the hapless new Minister of Housing and Infrastructure knew nothing of a $1 billion loan agreement that had been signed by the Canada Infrastructure Bank, essentially financing with taxpayer dollars the outsourcing of Canadian jobs to the shipyard in China. Imagine my shock, Mr. Chair, that we learned that during a time of unjustified steel and aluminum tariffs, where people are receiving pink slips for their jobs because of these American tariffs, that we find that they find that their own government is actually using their tax dollars to subsidize jobs and economic activity outside the country. And so I think it's completely on us as a committee to demand answers from both the Minister of Transport and Internal Trade and the Minister of Housing and Communities.
According to opposition MPs, here's where the Carney Liberals are struggling to get their story straight. When this story first broke, there were reports that Chrystia Freeland, who is now the federal government's Minister of Transport and Internal Trade, fired off a letter to her provincial counterpart in BC, lambasting the British Columbia government for picking a Chinese shipyard to do this work, given the Chinese government has hit Canada with tariffs on products like canola and seafood. But her letter made no mention that a federal government bank is going to be involved in the financing of this project. Here again is Dan Albus.
I don't understand how this is even within the Canadian Infrastructure Bank's mandate. And that's why the CEO of the infrastructure bank itself has been called in our motion specifically. Now, obviously, BC Ferries, there's a lot of questions. I've spoken to many reporters in British Columbia who have a number of different questions outlining the procurement and some of the details that come with this. But again, my focus is largely on getting answers so that people can know whether or not their government, remember the government that said elbows up, Canada strong, we can build it together, is in fact actually financing the outsourcing of Canadian jobs. And it doesn't seem that anyone up until the Conservatives, and I also should thank my colleague from the Bloc for supporting this emergency meeting today so that we can bring this important issue forward.
The Liberals on this committee are hoping this story will be lost in the summer news cycle when most people are not paying attention to what's happening in Ottawa with billions of taxpayer dollars. Will Greaves is a Liberal MP from Victoria, British Columbia, who accused the opposition of just wanting to score political points.
But I think it is disappointing to see our colleagues opposite making very familiar political points, using as a whipping post what is in fact a critical piece of infrastructure in our province of British Columbia. And while perhaps some of the colleagues, particularly those I note from the province of Ontario, may be less familiar with the critical role that BC Ferries plays in supporting BC's coastal communities, this is a service that is very unfortunately being played politics with currently and being made to feel the brunt of longstanding concerns, longstanding talking points that our Conservative colleagues have made before.
He would go on to claim that Canadian shipyards didn't place a bid on this work because Canadian shipyards are already too busy working on other projects.
And to explain very clearly for us why it is that Canadian shipyards currently are at capacity based on the national shipbuilding strategy, that they were unable to offer cost-competitive bids to provide these ferries. And I look forward to my Conservative colleagues defending why they think it is that the electrification of British Columbia's ferry fleet and that the expansion of this vital service for coastal communities is something that the Conservatives are seemingly endorsing, spending billions of dollars more and waiting decades longer to actually receive those replacement ferries. So we need to hear this witness testimony, Mr. Chair, and we need to have the opportunity to reflect on the questions that have been raised. But I encourage my colleagues to stop using BC Ferries and BC coastal communities as a punching bag.
This is not just a political problem for the Carney Liberals in Ottawa. This news has gone over like a lead balloon in British Columbia, where the ND Premier, David Eby, is facing questions on a weekly basis about how this happened. This week, Premier Eby tried to change the channel and question why ferry service on the East Coast gets more money from the federal government than ferry service on the West Coast.
I wasn't pleased with the fact that the contract was going to China. I wasn't happy with the fact that no Canadian company bid on this contract. We've made good progress on shipbuilding in this province. As I've been Premier, there's 39% more people working in shipbuilding. Specifically in this province, we dedicated $25 million to grow the sector that was matched by private sector investment that resulted in the creation of 500 jobs in shipbuilding in the province. And I believe there's an opportunity for us to work with the federal government to ensure that the next round of ferries is Canadian built. But the challenge that we have is an unequal ferry system where users in Atlantic Canada are heavily subsidized at a rate of 300 to 1 compared to users of the BC ferry system. And I certainly hope that's part of the federal conversation.
So there could be some political fireworks on Parliament Hill this summer, after all. After this meeting, the committee voted, and we'll hear from a number of witnesses over the summer, including Chrystia Freeland and the former Vancouver Mayor, Gregor Robertson, because he is now the federal infrastructure minister. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Well, he's with us every week, even during his summer holidays, to share his thoughts on some of the big news stories of the day. And Professor Ian Lee is back with us from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. And welcome back.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rob.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you again.
Yes.
So there's a very left-leaning think tank that you and I have discussed before some of their work, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. And in a new report issued by this think tank, it claims that interprovincial trade irritants, I'm quoting here, interprovincial trade irritants have been vastly overstated as virtually all goods, services, and investment flows freely across provincial borders. So we're making a big deal about nothing, all of this free trade by Canada Day. What do you think of this claim from this think tank?
First off, I've read the report. I downloaded it. It's running on my screen as I speak to you. I also have the IMF report. Over the last, let's say 35, 40 years, I've tried to read every report on this issue. There are voluminous reports, that's where I'm going, by academics, peer-reviewed articles in economic journals, think tanks, Finance Canada, Stats Canada, CD Howe, and of course the IMF of 2019. So there are numerous very serious, what I would call scholarly or quite scholarly. The think tanks aren't as, quote, scholarly because they're not universities. They're not peer-reviewed articles. But I've read, I think, most of them, and they're all, very good quality, and they do things like input-output analysis, which is a form of econometrics, to measure the impact of, for example, tariffs or non-tariff barriers, which is what provincial trade barriers are. And so then I went and read this report from the CCPA, and it's not a serious study. And I know some people will be really offended by that, and that's just too bad. I'm not unlike this. I'll be really now. I will be nasty, okay? Unlike the CCPA that is funded by unions and corporations and radical associations, I'm not funded by anybody except Carleton University. And Carleton does not tell me what to say or think or read. That's called academic freedom. No dean would ever dare to do that. And it's not just me. I don't have a special privilege. Okay.
So my point is, so where is it wrong? Where does it go wrong?
I'll tell you what went wrong in the report. There's an awful lot of anecdotal, descriptive information. There is no input-output analysis. There is no serious, not even unserious, econometric analysis where you say, okay, what's the total impact, estimated impact of the tariffs, and let's compare it to before they were put on or after. You're doing this kind of comparative analysis. This is explained very nicely in the beginning of the IMF study, the 2019 study that anybody can Google, where they go into the methodology. In this CCPA study, it is, I'll tell you what I believe it is, because they have a mission, which is fine, perfectly legitimate, free speech. Okay, they're there to advocate for workers' rights and similar progressive issues. These two authors, I looked them up, have come out of the environmental movement from some pretty radical environmental groups, and that's fine, perfectly legal. I'm not trying to suggest that this is wrong. Free speech is fine. But we cannot confuse lobbying with scholarly analysis. That's why in my classes, in my capstone class that I've been teaching for 38 years, I tell them, you're not going to quote stuff from unions, and I am unionized for 38 years, by the way. I pay union dues. And you're not going to use political comments by politicians. I don't care what political party, conservative, liberal, NDP. They're not serious scholars. So I said, you're going to use, my students are going to quote data from reputable, reliable sources called Statistics Canada, Finance Canada, Transport Canada, OECD, WTO, IMF. And what they've done here, and they've gussied it up, and I mean that. They've got some lovely footnotes, and people say, oh, it looks really good. There's lots of footnotes there. But at the end of the day, this report is anecdotal and descriptive. It is not analytical. It does not do I/O, input-output analysis. It does not hold the variables constant and compare them, unlike the other studies I have read. So there's my first criticism. I want to get the second point across very quickly before I run out of time.
All right.
We have known for 250 years since Adam Smith. We understand the logic of, I'll use the word that really turns some people off, capitalism. Don't like that word? Let's use the word the market economies. And we know how market economies work. It involves voluntary exchange between a buyer and a seller, supply and demand, operating in the market. And Adam Smith showed us 250 years ago, and Nobel Prizes have been awarded since, showing that when you put barriers on that called prohibitions on competition, or you put non-tariff barriers, what you do is you reduce the gains from exchange, from trade, from market economies. And so this has been studied to death. And so what they're denying in this report is the logic of the market economy that allowed these 38 countries at the OECD, what World Bank calls the high-income countries, the UN calls them that too. They're incredibly affluent and wealthy, U.S., Canada, Europe, Japan, South Korea. And they're denying the very logic of the market economy, that when you engage in protectionism, and this report is really advocating protectionism. They're saying, no, we don't need to reduce these barriers. No, everything's just fine and hunky-dory. Of course, the first obvious question is, if you don't need these protections, these non-tariff barriers, then why do we have them? And so they're
Let's stop here. Let's stop here. We can pick it up on the other side, Professor. We'll have to stop here for now, though. We'll get you right back with us. Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. This is News Radio.
In the 660 News Radio Groundworks Traffic Center, I'm Tanya Blakeney. Volume is moving a little bit slower through the downtown East End because Stampede is awake for another day. Travel speed through the Northeast Memorial Drive westbound through the Zoo and the 4th Avenue flyover recovering after an earlier crash that was blocking the westbound lanes of 4th Avenue at 3rd Street Southeast. It was the right lane that was blocked. That does look to be cleared now. Safe travels. If there is something in your way, it's a free call at star or pound 660. Traffic for Rogers Xfinity Internet. Get Rogers Xfinity Internet, Canada's most reliable internet. Visit rogers.com for more. Now the forecast from Environment Canada, looking for a high near 31 degrees today, a sunny sky, an overnight low just 16. That's not very cool for the overnight period, and a clear sky. Tomorrow could see some wet weather late day, chance for showers and a risk of thunderstorm. Wednesday's high is 24 degrees. Slightly cooler for Thursday and cloudy at 21 degrees. If you're nervous your home won't sell, call the Justin Haver Real Estate Team with eXp Realty. Justin's so confident they can sell your home that he's guaranteeing it. Guaranteed by eXp Realty. Justin and his team know real estate, and there's no question that you can sell your home with them. Go to justinhaver.com.
I find Prominence Way an excellent retirement community. The management deserves full recognition for their flexibility and nurture. The variety of food is excellent, and living here has been a wonderful experience with a good mix of couples, singles, men, and women. I'm so happy to call Prominence Way Retirement Community my home.
See if Prominence Way Retirement Community is right for you. Visit prominancewayretirement.com.
Now, more than ever, it's important to support our fellow Canadians, whether that's supporting local businesses or investing in your own goals. Capital Direct has been investing in Canadian homeowners for 20 years now, all with Canadian investment. Use your home's value so you can support your business, renovate your home, or simplify your debts. How would you use $80,000, $280,000, or even $2.8 million? Find out why Canadians trust Capital Direct. Call 1-800-NEW-CAPITAL today.
CapitalDirect.ca.
Hey, you made it! Grab a seat.
Backyard brews, paired perfectly with Drink Sense. Keep alcohol enjoyable with moderation at drinksensetips.ca.
Heard you hired Beyond Curb Appeal to build your deck.
Yep, composite, low maintenance, flawless install. Super impressed.
Nice. I got the do-it-yourself wood package from them. Saved enough to go bigger. Way bigger.
Okay, but I've got glass railings.
Pergola.
Privacy screens.
Wraparound stairs.
Mood lighting?
Buddy, sometimes it's just about size. My deck is bigger than yours.
Your what?
My deck.
Everyone's talking about their decks. Make yours the one they can't stop looking at. BeyondCurbAppeal.ca.
Stop hoping, praying, and wishing that your car will make it from point A to B. Quality Transmission now offers on-the-spot financing, so you can get repairs today and pay later. Everyone's approved. No credit checks required, no down payment. Get approved online at qualitytransmission.com. And they're not just transmission specialists. Service, general auto repair, and tires. Quality Transmission covers it all. Visit them at qualitytransmission.com and 5100 Habalta Road Southeast.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Back with Professor Ian Lee from Carleton University. Any closing thoughts on this report from this think tank that you disagree with so much on interprovincial trade barriers, Professor? Closing remarks on that.
Number one, that doesn't use any econometric analysis. There's no input-output analysis. There's no methodology. It's description throughout. But it's given away in the very second or third paragraph. He said mutual recognition legislation, which has been advocated by the WTO, which has been advocated by people in Canada, federal, provincial, by scholars and so forth, Trevor Tom. They actually say this, the new mutual recognition legislation will reduce the government's capacity to protect the environment and promote work health and safety. Nowhere in this discussion of trade barriers has anybody talked about deregulating at all. Nobody has said we're going to abolish environmental regulation. What they're doing is saying where there's overlap between on a particular law or regulation on the environment, and by the way, there is across the 10 provinces, they're all regulating on the same issues, and so there's different laws on the same issues. So that you get approved to be a teacher in BC, you cannot go into Ontario. You have to apply to get permission, and they have to check you out. In other words, we have duplicate legislation. This is not about eliminating or deregulating, but they characterize it, which reveals, I believe, what their agenda is, and CCPA has been opposed to free trade agreements, and they make it very clear in this paper they're opposed to this, and their language is, well, it's going to reduce the protection of the environment and health and safety. Nowhere has anybody advocated deregulating environment or deregulating health and safety. What we're saying is, if you're recognized in a certain province with a medical degree or a legal degree or anything like that, or on trucking regulations, then that regulation, if it's good enough for BC, will be acceptable in the other provinces. This is about reducing regulatory duplication and overlap, but they did not characterize it as that. So what it tells me is that they have an agenda, and the agenda is not to do a serious, scholarly, neutral analysis of these barriers, like the IMF did, like other analyses have been done by scholars in this area. So I think this is what this is it's a disguised attempt to present as a scholarly work, which it isn't, a piece to which is fine. It's advocacy. This is lobbying advocacy.
Okay, it's advocacy.
Nothing wrong with that. Perfectly legal, but it's not scholarly and it's not independent.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Well, that's our time. You took it all up on one topic today. So we'll pick up on it. We will pick up on it. I know what you're like when you get going. We'll pick up on other issues next week when you join us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Rob. Thank you.
We'll speak soon. Bye-bye. Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
And it's time for our Newsday panel. Great to have our guests with us today. Cam Holmstrom is principal at Neepaway Strategies, the pride of Kenora, Ontario. How are you?
Very good, Rob. Always glad to be here.
Yeah, great to hear from you. Hope your summer is going well, Cam. It's been too long. Geoff Turner is back with us. I don't know where Geoff's from, but he's the vice president at Blue Sky Strategy Group, but I'm sure wherever he's from, they probably have a statue of him in the main square. How are you, Geoff?
Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Geoff. Thank you. Great to hear from you.
Always great to be on the show, Rob.
So I want to get into these news reports. The Globe was the first to report it. Now all the news outlets have it. Cabinet ministers in the Carney government have been asked to find, quote unquote, ambitious internal savings this summer ahead of the budget expected this fall. Quote, ministers must find ways to reduce program spending by 7.5% in the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2026, followed by 10% in savings the next year, 15% in 2028, 2029. So, Geoff, how are the Carney Liberals going to spin this as something other than cuts?
I think this shouldn't be much of a surprise, although, of course, now we're seeing numbers. You know, you make commitments about reducing the cost of operating expenses in the government, and eventually you put numbers to it, and that's what's happening now. And they definitely have a very fast timeline in trying to get that organized in time for the fall budget and eventually a budget next spring, perhaps for the last round. I think we heard very clearly in the campaign that the Carney commitment was to reduce operating spending growth from 9% to 2%. That takes work, that takes pain, and while also preserving the capital investments of the government in things like infrastructure, equipment, military provisions, et cetera, and also protecting entirely the transfers to provinces and individuals. So that's things like your seniors benefits, things like your health transfers and social transfers, job training transfers to provinces. So, I think the last thing I'll say, Rob, is just to keep in mind for those numbers, those 7.5% to 10% to 15%, this is looking out over those 3 years at the level of growth. So it's not taking the level of today and reducing it by 7.5% tomorrow. This is looking at the level of growth today, adding 2%, but not going to 9% as it was already on track. And finally, it may have been missed or may have been undervalued or may have been disbelieved, but even in the Trudeau government before the Carney government, in last year's budget in 2024, they did have, and the fall economic statement eventually, they did have savings targets as well, not nearly this aggressive, but there would have been those targets. And so they have a lot sort of already ongoing to try to implement these things. But it's important to remember that this is operating spending inside of government bureaucracies, not the spending on people's benefits or the money that goes to provinces for essential public services.
Okay, how do you view it, Cam Holmstrom?
Oh, I don't disagree on what's going to be the target. I guess to me the question is, what is that going to look like? Because there's a wide swath of what it is. And honestly, if I, as a former member of PSAC, I would be I would be advising my former union to pump the brakes a little bit on the hyperbolic language and wait to see what's there, because part of this could very well be, okay, we're not talking about wholesale slashing of programs. We're talking about not replacing people after retirement. In some cases, it could be simply a matter of we're going to close up office spaces. That could mean more remote work, which is what a lot of their members want. So if you're not paying for an actual building and operating a building, you're bringing in savings there. The other piece of this, I think, that needs to be brought into scope, which I think is legitimate, is you have to remember how we got to this point, right? Part of it was through COVID, was through emergency, where we had to ramp things up, and they necessarily have not ramped back down since then. But also part of it too is coming from a government that the previous prime minister, who was one to let things slide, and then all of a sudden when the heat got too hot would act quickly and then go over the top. I think of the passport office as a great example, where all of a sudden they ignored it for so long, where the service became, pardon my language, crappy. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, okay, now we have to act. They threw a bunch of money at it and brought in a bunch of people. Did they get it right-sized when they did that? Probably not. So there's room for adjustment there. But when you govern like that, that's the kind of thing that can happen. But I will say this. I am very curious to see how it is they're going to be able to pull this off without people feeling it. I think that's going to be very interesting to see. When I hear them talking about pushing towards towards AI, I wonder how that's going to play into this. That'll probably, yes, involve people losing their jobs. It'll just be a matter of what does this look like? Is it retirement, not replacing, or is it going to be actual cuts of service? So that's why.
I mean, we have a minister of AI. What does it mean when I call the CRA? Am I directed to an AI chatbot? Is that the future? I don't know. But look, I mean, and election campaigns are what they are, and there's lots of political back and forth. I get that. But Carney and the Liberals were worrying, conservatives will just burn the place to the ground. Cuts. That's all conservatives know is how to cut. And I just wonder if progressive voters may be starting to feel duped by Carney. Because all of a sudden he's the one who's instructing people, well, you got to, come back to me pretty soon. By the end of the summer, I want to see how you're going to cut 7.5% from your budget, and then next year 10%, and then next year 15%. Is this what progressive-minded voters voted for? What would you say to that, Geoff?
I think there's this sort of ongoing, almost a myth that progressive voters didn't know what they were voting for when massively siding with Carney, and I think that they really did. And I think, as I hear out in the street, people are seeing a person who is serious, who is action-oriented, who is trying to focus on what will make this country work better and be more stable and secure in its own place in the world. And that kind of trumps a lot of other pocket issues for the left, and I think we just went through 10 years of identity politics and sort of social spending above all else as its own initiative. So I think there is an overestimation that there's progressive voter regret there. I think going back, the difference between what the Liberal commitments around efficiency and reducing that growth in government operations and the Conservative model was, I don't think anything was off the table for the Conservatives, like cuts to seniors benefits, like cuts to healthcare transfers, like cuts to social transfers, job training transfers. Those were on the table for them. They're not on the table for this government. I think you look at other options like the capital budget. This is something that the Carney government has also promised not to reduce and to continue to invest in really key priorities, both at a public service level in terms of infrastructure and community goods and physical things in your town, but also in our trade and export economy and in the clean transition. And I think if you look at the Conservative agenda, they would also have just gone and completely gutted any type of capital investment in things that had anything to do with climate change. And that includes climate resiliency, things like water management, things like climate management, things like carbon removal technologies. So I think they had a wider scope, and where the Carney government is really trying to focus is on that operational budget, making sure the bodies in government are doing what they need to be doing, not doing more, and allocating those resources to what matters the most for the public service. I know one more thing, Rob, let me just say, there's an old adage. Yeah. The federal government is an insurance company with an army and a tax collector. And so, in terms of public-facing services, healthcare, social services, these are rightly the domain of provinces, and the federal government contributes to those. But how many people do we have facing the public in the federal government that don't actually need to be facing the public, and that should be more properly done by other levels of government?
Okay, we'll be right back. I'll ask Cam to weigh in on that. I have some other questions as well. We'll be right back to our Newsday panel. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Right, with our Newsday panelists today, Cam Holmstrom, Principal at Neat Boy Strategies, Geoff Turner, Vice President, Blue Sky Strategy Group. Cam, you told us, for the first time ever, you voted for the Liberals. You're a longtime NDP. Do you feel duped by Carney? Were you duped?
No, I wasn't duped. And I am still a New Democrat. And you know what? I'm going to be very clear about this point, because I've seen a lot of New Democrats, some elected, some not, some who think that they're big pundits, I think they're really high and mighty people who know it all, but have achieved absolutely jack squat in their lives politically. But they have come out and said every time the Carney government comes out and does something they don't like, you've been duped. Do you feel bad? You feel duped. You've been screwed. You've been this and that. You know what? Most of us who voted for Carney this time, it had nothing to do with programs or anything else. It had to do with Trump and ensuring we were dealing with that. That story hasn't gone anywhere. But even if I'm to put that aside, I'm going to point out a very simple fact here, is that if you do not run the government well, and you do not take care of your deficits, and you do not make sure that things are done well, then all of a sudden you do have to start going after programs. You do have to go after services. So if you care about pharmacare and dental care and these things the NDP achieved in the last government, you better darn well be sure the government's making sure it's paying its bills and trying to keep itself in the black. The fact of the matter is, I love pointing this out because some of these same people love to just rant on about this and saying Tommy Douglas wouldn't have done this and Tommy Douglas wouldn't have done that. You know what? Tommy Douglas is the father of Medicare, but when did he have it fully implemented? At the end of his fourth majority term. 15 years it took him to do it. Why? Because the books in Saskatchewan were trash. He had to stabilize that government so they could actually pay for it. The fact of the matter is that there is nothing in any way, shape, or form in the traditional NDP form of governance that has been about wasteful spending for today, forget about tomorrow, and just spend till the end of the earth, come home and never cut anything back. That is garbage. But here's the thing, Rob, and I will say this.
All right, very good.
No. I worked up here, but I'll just point out.
I know.
The fact of the matter is that when it came to Mark Carney, we knew what we were getting, and we knew why we went and did it. And guess what? I'm still a New Democrat. I'm a card-carrying New Democrat. If I had to have an election today, the way my party's talking, they would lose my vote again because of this, because they are not paying attention to the issue. They've got their thumb firmly put up their rear ends, and they're making themselves feel good by drinking their own bathwater.
All right, Geoff, we only have a couple of minutes left, but I do want to ask you, Cam mentioned all of these things that are so near and dear to the hearts of New Democrats, things like the dental care program, first steps toward pharmacare, The New Democrats like the idea of $10 a day childcare. If we are moving into an era of more fiscal austerity in Ottawa, what does that mean for these treasured public services?
Yeah, and Cam's an old friend and former colleague, and I've always known to be so wedded to those progressive values, and didn't know about his voting choices. So Cam, I hear your passion, and thanks for lending it. And I understand it's only a lend, and I think you validate what I said, which is there was a choice that was made in a context and with an individual who showed a lot of integrity and willingness to do things that we hadn't done before. On those programs, Rob, I mean, I think it's the same thing Liberals have been saying for years, and I think are proved out when you step back and look at a lot of evidence in terms of social benefits that accrue from those programs. These are economic things. Childcare for people like me. I got 3 kids under 5. Let me tell you, childcare is a very real expense for a lot of people in this country. Lots and lots of money goes out the door for them, right? Affordability is an issue. Childcare can contribute to those kind of things. Thinking about pharmacare and dental care is particularly for seniors. I mean, I have a relative, we'll go too much detail. I have a relative who basically got his first new set of dentures in 20 years because he doesn't have anything in that regard. And he got a dentist saying, hey, look, we can hook you up to this program, and lo and behold, and he doesn't have the money to afford that on his own. These are things, and that allows him to live a life that is obviously a higher quality life for him, but allows him to do more things in his life that contribute to our community and economy. And in pharmacare, same thing. People who are genuinely burdened by drug costs, getting support to offset those in the way that most Canadians would expect, but actually doesn't always occur in the way our drug system is set up. That only contributes again to people being healthy and productive in their jobs, in their communities, and in their families. And so I think I think Carney, of all people, definitely sees the value. And he uses the term values as his book, and he says, the market doesn't always solve for those challenges. And so governments and publics have a role to solve those challenges, and it's programs like that implement it. And I think the sufficiency thing, I sort of already said it, but how can we make sure that people who sit behind a desk have an earpiece or a phone in a call center or are facing the public or are not facing the public in the federal public service, how can we make sure they're in the right place, doing the right work that's contributing to the overall experience of the citizen and overall productivity of the government? And let's focus our resources on that and try to cut some of the stuff that doesn't achieve results for people.
We'll be right back. Talk a little bit about Pierre Poilievre when we return. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
In the 660 News Radio Groundworks Traffic Center, I'm Tanya Blakeney, cleaning up a crash in the southwest, Elbow Drive northbound approaching Malibu Road, and in the southeast, 42nd Street at 112th Avenue. This one's been on the go since about 9:30. Volume downtown getting busier, especially around the Stampede grounds, north end near Olympic Way, 4th Street, and in the southeast at 25th Avenue. Travel safely. If there is something in your way, it's a free call at star or pound 660. Traffic for Village Honda. Sell your car and set sail. Village Honda will pay top dollar for any make and model, and you'll get a cruise for 2 when they buy your car. Get your no-obligation appraisal today at Village Honda. Now the forecast from Environment Canada. 31 degrees, a hot one for Tuesday. You'll find a cloud cover likely getting less and less as the day goes on. Overnight low just 16 degrees, a mostly clear sky. Tomorrow, chance for late day showers, high 24 degrees. Thursday, cloudy and 21. Friday and Saturday, sunshine, 26 degrees.
Representation in media is important.
There's a lot of people with disabilities that don't feel seen.
I'm a music producer. Having a disability is not really shown in the industry.
I make media representing women in wheelchairs.
AMI is a broadcaster that strives to change the way people think about disability.
I'm a very loud and proud deaf woman, and I want to be able to make a difference.
Watch inclusive and accessible content on AMI TV or stream now at amiplus.ca.
Alberta is already the economic engine of Canada, but we could be so much more prosperous if Ottawa would work with us, rather than attack our economy and jobs. The status quo needs to change, but how? The Alberta Next panel wants to hear from you on how we can best strengthen Alberta's sovereignty and position within a united Canada. Please visit alberta.ca/next and tell us what you think Alberta's next step should be. A message from the Government of Alberta.
I use the online tools and fill out all the forms.
but I still don't know if I'm missing out on tax savings.
Get help with KD Professional Services. Their goal is not only to manage your business accounting, but also to equip you with the tools, guidance, and resources to truly understand it. They offer online courses and resources designed to empower you with the tax and financial knowledge needed to manage your business effectively. Don't just be compliant, be confident. Visit kdeducational.ca.
It's summer, and TSC is here to make your beauty routine effortless. We've got all your beauty and skincare needs covered, so you can look your best all day and stay on trend. Start a clean routine. Say YES to SPF. Do it up with dewy skin and glass lips. Make your lashes pop and bring out your best features with ease. Glow all summer with quality brands and products that'll make you feel fabulous from sunrise to sunset. Shop now at tsc.ca. Exciting offers every day.
If you're thinking about the legacy you want to leave behind, here's Sherry McMillan from McMillan Estate Planning.
Legacy isn't just about wealth. It's about values, memories, and intention. At McMillan Estate Planning, we help high net worth families design thoughtful plans that preserve not only assets, but purpose. Let's make your legacy as meaningful as your life.
RSVP for McMillan Estate Planning's complimentary virtual seminar on Thursday, July 17th at McMillanestate.com.
Weather for Leon's. Boxing Week is back at Leon's. Save up to 50% on select furniture. Plus, save up to $1,000 on select appliance packages. Visit leons.ca today.
CFFR AM.
A Rogers radio station.
660 News Radio Calgary. Now you know with Rob Snow. Continues on News Radio.
Back with our Newsday panelists, Geoff Turner from Blue Sky, Cam Holmstrom, principal at Nepoy Strategies. Neither are of the what I would call the conservative persuasion. So I will be accused here of maybe lobbing a softball at both of you today. Okay. I expect you to do your best Toronto Blue Jays and just hit this right out of the park. But if I said to you, because there is an opinion that is a narrative that is forming that Pierre Poilievre is on the outs. If I said to you, Pierre Poilievre is yesterday's man, Geoff Turner, what would you say?
I think we heard it in Cam's answer, and I think we're seeing it around Canada that Pierre Poilievre's politics, a large majority of Canadians want to see in the rearview mirror, and that includes some conservatives. You know, if you look at the polling during the campaign, you said, at 40+% support at the end of the day for the Conservative Party, about half of that, so about 20 to 25% of the conservative base, think that the Donald Trump politics is pretty good. Now, I would wager that's probably gone down, that we've seen the real world impact of that, ridiculous administration and the scary stuff that it's up to, and just the ineptitude it's approach on its trade and economic policy as well. And I'm sure that some of your listeners will vehemently disagree with my characterization, but we know that's a minority of Canadians. And I think if you look at the other half of that conservative coalition, they were never very easy with that style of politics. So Pierre Poilievre, whether he personally has done or not, whether he can be the comeback kid, I don't think he can be the comeback kid, in practice the same type of politics, that sort of reactionary, grievance-based U.S. right-wing politics. It's not going to fly in Canada going forward, but you're too scared of what's going on right next door to us in the U.S. And I also don't think Pierre Poilievre can change his spot. So I think he's in a jam because I don't think he can come back being a whole different guy.
All right. Okay. All right. We only have a minute, Cam. Go ahead. Is Pierre Poilievre yesterday's man?
Honestly, I think he is at this point. Because here's the thing about Pierre Poilievre, and Geoff kind of alluded to it. I've said here many times, he hasn't changed. He's been the same guy ever since he got elected. He's doubled and doubled and doubled and doubled down on it, and eventually, at some point, if you don't win the whole hand, you're going to crap out. And that's what's happened here. I think the kicker is, and this is actually a similar problem the NDP has right now to the Conservatives. You want to try to make Mark Carney the boogeyman? You want to say he's just like Justin Trudeau? Well, everything that has happened so far would definitely scream the opposite. And people aren't scared of Mark Carney. They aren't worried about Mark Carney. If anything, they are comforted by Mark Carney. So all of a sudden, it not only disproves what you've been trying to say all this time, he hasn't figured out a way to pivot or a will to pivot away from that yet. At the end of the day, he's not trying to react to the moment. He's waiting for the moment to come back to him. And if you do that, well, guess what? You may have missed the wave and you could find yourself sitting on the beach looking at the scenery around you. So am I going to say for sure that he's done? No, I'll never say never. But yeah, he's got some work to do. And the question is, does he want to do it or not?
Okay. Great to hear from both of you today. A real pleasure. Thank you so much. We'll speak soon. All the best.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Cam.
Yeah, bye-bye. Geoff Turner from Blue Sky Strategy Group and Cam Holmstrom from Neepaway Strategies. Talkback is coming up right after the latest breaking news. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic, illegal drugs. Yeah, we're going to talk about illegal drugs today. And we're going to do this like a poll. We're going to keep track of your answers because we just want to know where you stand. And we'll see if any clear trend emerges by the end of the program. So here's a big question for you today. Do you think the policies in this country around possessing and using illegal drugs in Canada are too permissive, or are they too restrictive? That's kind of the big picture question. And give it some thought. Give us a call. We'll take it from there. We'll see where the conversation goes over the next couple of hours. Do you think policies around possessing and using illegal drugs in Canada are too permissive, or are they too restrictive? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. For example, it's been almost 7 years since the Trudeau government decriminalized cannabis. That was back in 2018. And some people think that was a great idea. Others say it's caused all kinds of problems, and still others will say we haven't gone far enough in this country, and that other drugs should be decriminalized, or that all drugs should be decriminalized. What do you think? Take, for example, magic mushrooms. Now, magic mushrooms are still illegal in Canada, but the fact is they're very easy to buy. There are storefronts operating in cities all across the country. Sometimes the police move in, they raid them, they close them down. A couple of days later, they open back up again as though nothing has ever happened. You can buy magic mushrooms online. Someone will deliver them in the mail right to your place, no questions asked. There's even a news story today about magic mushrooms from the Canadian press. Very, very similar to news stories that were in the news media in the years leading up to the legalization of marijuana. Stories like how magic mushrooms or psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms, can be therapeutic for some people, have health benefits for some people. Health professionals are saying this is a drug that has been demonized and laws around its prohibition should be redrawn or prohibition should end. What would you think of that? What would you think of that? What if magic mushrooms were legalized, or at least decriminalized? And you could go to a legal store, buy magic mushrooms legally, the way people buy cannabis legally, alcohol legally, tobacco legally. Would that be progress? Would that be a step in the right direction? Or would that be, taking the drug laws in this country too far? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577 to have your say on Talkback. I've heard from some people over the years in the field of mental health and addiction, done many interviews on this topic over many, many years, and some people think all illegal drugs should be decriminalized. All illegal drugs should be decriminalized, like they tried to do in British Columbia. And their reasoning goes something like this. Issues with addiction to illegal drugs, we should approach that from a public health perspective and not a criminal justice perspective. People with drug addictions aren't necessarily bad people, but rather they're people with an illness, and we have to treat it like an illness instead of treating it as a great moral failing that needs the criminal justice system to become involved. And people who hold this point of view will usually say that the consequences of being caught with these drugs are too severe: criminal records, lost opportunities, people can't get jobs, they can't get decent housing, and that it disproportionately affects marginalized communities. And they say it's a waste of police resources. The police would be better off going after the really big bad guys and throwing them in jail instead of people who may be struggling with drug addiction. And that's why, for a while in this country, there was a move in this direction. Make no mistake about it, the decriminalization of all drugs. And the poster child for that is British Columbia, where the NDP government there received an exemption from the federal drug laws so it could run a 3-year pilot program to decriminalize all kinds of illegal drugs: meth, cocaine, heroin, other opioids, MDMA. It didn't go well. Problems with social disorder. Problems with the public consumption of these drugs, people using drugs in children's playgrounds, parks, beaches, even in hospitals, even in hospital rooms. That was kind of the tipping point in BC. And so the NDP backtracked and banned the use of those drugs at all public places. Still the subject of a constitutional challenge. We haven't heard the end of this. The drug decriminalization issue. We do know that advocates wanted drug decriminalization expanded beyond British Columbia to places like the city of Toronto, but not just the city of Toronto. All kinds of places. Thunder Bay, Montreal, Edmonton, Calgary. Nothing formal from Halifax, but I'm sure there are a few people in Halifax who would think that would be the right way to go, decriminalize drugs. Maybe you're one of them. If you are, we're open to all kinds of opinions around here. So give us a call and share yours. If you're not in favor of this approach, full-on drug decriminalization, give us a call and tell us why. Phone lines are open right now, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577, as we talk on Talkback today about illegal drugs. And whether you think the drug laws in this country are too permissive or too restrictive, what would you think if a drug like magic mushrooms was decriminalized or legalized the same way cannabis has been? Good idea, bad idea? What would you think if the country just decriminalized all illegal drugs? They tried to do it in British Columbia. They longed to do it in Toronto and in some other cities. Would you say, that would be a welcome advancement for society? It's time to end the war on drugs. Or would you say something like, you're just asking for trouble? If you've never called before, just mention that to us. We'll make your call a priority on our topic today of illegal drugs on Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. The call-in line again, 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about the policies in Canada around illegal drugs, the drug laws. The main question is, do you think the laws about possession and consumption of drugs in this country are too permissive or too restrictive? What would you think if, for example, if magic mushrooms were legalized the same way cannabis was years ago? What if all illegal drugs were decriminalized like they tried to do in BC? 1-833-668-2577. Let's start today with Vincent in Calgary. Hello, Vincent. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Do you hear me?
All right, Vincent. I hear you just fine, Vincent. What's your opinion?
Well, first of all, you present a lot of good information there with a lot of context that really sets everybody up well to be able to participate here. However, my situation is a little bit different. It might widen the context a bit. When I think of your question, how it applies to my case here, should they be more permissive or restrictive? The drugs are classified in different schedules. Now, my example is this. I'm 64, so I've run out of my own testosterone. Body not making it. Doctor said when your testosterone drops that low, your risk of cardiac events. So I'm on testosterone therapy. Now, for the past 8 months, Canada has a nationwide shortage of testosterone. My pharmacy can't get it. It's under prescription. So I went to the underground labs online. Quick, easy to buy, delivered to the door, but it must be illegal. It's a Schedule 3 drug. And
that would make it illegal. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, here I am, caught. Like I've never tried marijuana, nothing. I barely take my prescriptions even. I'm not into it.
Okay.
But I need this. The pharmacy can't get it. I have the prescription for it. I've been on it for a year and a half, and the pharmacy's been regularly providing it. Now I've had to go to the illegal source to get the same exact product. I don't feel great about that. What am I going to do, though, right? You know what I mean? And so I don't like that I would be. So that question, should they be more permissive? Well, maybe in an exceptional case like mine where it's provided by one of these other labs that are not a regular licensed pharmacy, that should be a little bit more permissive, I think.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Vincent. Very interesting circumstance there. Hope it all works out for you, though. Thank you. Let's go to Halifax, Nova Scotia right now. Donna, you're on Talkback today. Thanks for calling. Donna, what's your opinion?
My opinion is that I've never ever taken drugs or anything, neither have any of my brothers or sisters, and I think it's far, far, far too slack. And the only thing, it was the stupidest thing when Justin Trudeau got promised to legalize marijuana when he got elected. I said we're going to have nothing but a bunch of drug addicts and problems in the country, and guess what? That's what's happening. I think there's about 260,000 people living on the street. Most of them are drug addicts, and I don't know. It's too easy to get. And now, I don't know if you've heard about this, and the media isn't that great about all the drug busts that have been happening all across Canada lately is out of this world. Have you ever heard about Project Pelican?
Project Pelican. I'm not. You'd have to refresh my memory.
It was not on the news.
All right.
9 men were arrested in the historic drug bust by Peel Regional Police. It was reported June the 10th. 1,000 pounds of brick cocaine, street value of $47.9 million. They got automatic guns. There was trucking companies involved and blah, 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 blah.
Yes. I do remember that story.
And the U.S. Drug Enforcement, Canada Border Security, and Homeland Security, and everybody was involved. Why isn't that on the news? And then there was another one.
You said you read about it in the news.
Project Panda, Project Bionic, Project Golden. The poor old police, I feel sorry for them. There's so many illegal drugs. And the worst thing, in my opinion, and I'll say no more, was when marijuana and vaping was first introduced and made legal. I don't believe in any of this stuff being legal. I think it's ridiculous, and I think these traffickers should be charged a heck of a lot more than what they are. Most of them are let out on bail, and then they keep on going in their business. But it's a sad, sad world we're living in. Look at the people that are walking around, they're in stupors. And the doctors are now saying that vaping and smoking marijuana and stuff is causing problems in the brain. That's probably why we have so many people with mental problems. I'm not saying everybody, but it doesn't cause everybody.
Okay,
but
you think the drug laws, they become too permissive, and that's one of the questions that we're asking. Okay, so I doubt you would be in favor if magic mushrooms were legalized the same way cannabis was some years ago. I do thank you for your call, however, Donna, thank you. And we're off and running on Talkback today. You can join the discussion at 1-833-668-2577 as we talk about the policies around illegal drugs in this country. This is News Radio.
In the 660 News Radio Groundworks Traffic Center, I'm Tanya Blakeney. A bit of a slowdown. Big slowdown now in the southwest. Glenmore eastbound approaching 14th Street. The right lane is blocked by an incident with crews responding. It's got the reservoir backed up. It's southbound Crowchild Trail slow from 33rd Avenue, and westbound lanes of Glenmore back up at least to 37th Street southwest. Pack plenty of patience in the reservoir area. In the opposite direction from the southeast, Glenmore Trail westbound moves well from Deerfoot and Stony Trail towards the inner city and then over the reservoir. If you spot something in the way, a stall collision or a distraction, you can pass it on 403-291-0066. Now the forecast from Environment Canada, looking for a high near 31 degrees today, a sunny sky, an overnight low just 16. That's not very cool for the overnight period, and a clear sky. Tomorrow could see some wet weather late day, chance for showers and a risk of thunderstorm. Wednesday's high is 24 degrees. Slightly cooler for Thursday and cloudy at 21 degrees.
For over 10 years, Calypso has provided expert-managed IT services, large-scale IT projects, managed cybersecurity, and cloud migration services for Calgary businesses. As a Calgarian company, we understand the needs of Calgary businesses, which is why our 24/7 service desk, project implementation team, and network operations center are all located right here in Calgary. Calypso, a Calgary-based IT company helping our customers leverage technology and implement IT strategies. Calypso, CALITSO.com.
Michael, no other nation in the world has stores like Spence.
Really? How many other stores in the world custom manufacture every ring for every customer? None.
How many send their diamond buyers to the cutting houses with cash in hand so they get first pick of the freshly cut diamonds?
None.
How many stores keep thousands of engagement rings in wide open showcases so that people can pick them up, look at the price tag, and try them on?
I came from Scotland, and Sarah came from Texas because Spence is an incredibly special diamond store.
Alpine News Network is here live with one of our superheroes.
People often ask me how fast I am. Oh, one sec. I just went to Bali and back. I'm also fast when it comes to helping people. Like when I helped Bill. His company vehicles were being serviced, and I was able to help him with a business loan. He got the transport trucks his company needed, and I got to honk the horn. All of them.
Own your home? Need a loan? Alpine Credits can help.
Alpine Credits, where homeowners get approved.
Stampede time is a great reason to have a party. Trimark Tubular reminds you that if you're going to celebrate with a drink, please don't get behind the wheel. During Stampede, thousands of people will be tempted to risk their lives and the lives of others by driving while impaired. Don't gamble with your future. Call a cab or have a designated driver in your group. Please have a great, safe Stampede from Trimark Tubular. For a full range of Oil Country Tubular products, call 403-266-3807.
Are you living with acute or chronic pain? Whether it's a rotator cuff injury, degenerative disc disease, or the sharp pain of plantar fasciitis, Alberta Laser and Rehabilitation Center is here to help. We use top-of-the-line laser therapy to target pain, reduce inflammation, and accelerate healing. Our physiotherapists create a personalized treatment plan just for you. Start your journey to a pain-free life today. Call 403-452-0233. Book now and get your life back. Alberta Laser and Rehabilitation Center, where healing begins.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Are the drug policies in this country, we're talking about possession, consumption of illegal drugs in this country, are they too permissive or too restrictive? What would you think if magic mushrooms were legalized the way we legalized cannabis some years ago? What would you think of all illegal drugs were decriminalized? They tried that in British Columbia, by the way. Tyler is a first-time caller calling from Halifax, and I thank you for doing so, Tyler. You're on the air. What's your opinion, Tyler?
Well, hey, I've been listening to the show for a long time. Glad I was able to get in here. It's quite the subject, and Donna there had a pretty interesting take a couple calls ago. I think that's a little bit brash, and to say that drug use is causing the homeless problem, it's usually the other way around. It's usually becoming homeless causes you to get into substance abuse, but that's not what we're talking about today. I think that it should be legalized. I think anything that is grown naturally and is not chemically processed to get to a point of being able to be used should be legalized. That includes the coca plant, that includes mushrooms, that includes cannabis. Heck, that even includes opium. I think anything that's naturally provided by the earth should be legalized.
Okay, let me ask you, you're in Halifax. Cities all across the country have had these illegal magic mushroom stores. They pop up, they get raided, and they get shut down. Do you have those in Halifax? Do you know? Or
it is very much. You are very able to get magic mushrooms if you want. Yeah,
At a storefront, do you have to know a guy who knows a guy, kind of thing, or
yeah,
you
they've
just buy them
been
online?
they've been pretty stingent on allowing storefronts to carry them. There's been a couple of weed shops and perhaps some of the reserve shops that have. But certainly online retailers, anybody can get it delivered right to your front door.
Really? Okay. And you would be in favor of all drugs being decriminalized? Like if methamphetamine was decriminalized, you'd be okay with that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, that would be going too far then.
Absolutely. Anything that's naturally done. Now, they tried it in BC, but because of the social dynamics of what's going on there with politics and with, the way that the province is, it didn't quite work. But if you look at a country like Portugal, where they decriminalized, in fact, legalized all drugs, and they, instead of putting people into prisons, they put the money into mental health supports and things like that. They've had an extreme decrease in addiction and in criminality overall. So I think it is something that can be done, but for sure here in Canada, I think that things that are naturally grown and naturally processed should be legalized, and anything else, like the methamphetamines and the cocaine and stuff like that, that shouldn't be legal. Magic mushrooms have medicinal purposes. They've been used to treat ALS. There's been extremely good uses for it for people with Alzheimer's. It is used to treat mental health disorders, including PTSD for veterans. There's lots of research going on all over the world, and I think that magic mushrooms in particular are something that should be legalized, and then there should be a campaign for awareness and information about the consequences and also the positives of it.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you so much for your call. Sam, you just hang on the line. I would bring Sam on now, but we'd only have about 30 seconds, and I want to give Sam more time than that to share an opinion on this topic, which we will pick up the conversation right after the latest breaking news. We're talking about the policies, the drug laws in Canada about illegal drugs. That's our topic of the day. The main question is, are the laws in this country about possessing and consuming drugs in this country, are they too permissive or are they too restrictive? We'll pick up the conversation right after the latest breaking news on Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And on Talkback today, we're talking about illegal drug policies, the drug laws in Canada. That's our topic of the day, with the main question being, do you think the policies about the possession and consumption of drugs in this country are too permissive or too restrictive? Let's get to Sam in Halifax today. Sam, thank you for calling. You're on the air. Hi, Sam.
Thank you very much.
What's your opinion?
So I think that marijuana, it's okay because we've had it here forever. Like even back, 8-10 years ago, everyone you knew had access to marijuana. In fact, I would go as far to say it was actually easier to get marijuana. It was cheaper and somewhat better probably 8 years ago on the black market. Now it's all federal and you go to the LCs and stuff and then you get it there, and it's lost some of its something to it. But anyway, marijuana is fine.
Okay.
Mushrooms.
What about mushrooms?
See,
what about mushrooms?
That's an interesting one because I do mushrooms on a monthly-ish basis, but I don't think that they should be readily available for everyone in the public because there's a lot of people that might have issues with taking them and the dosages. So you can get really messed up really easily and have a psychoactive episode and a bad trip, as they call it, and then get into an accident or just have a total psychotic break. I don't think it should be recreationally available to everyone. However, I agree with Tyler that medically it has a lot of good uses. And like Tyler said, you can already go out and get it. Like the people that want to do it recreationally, you can go to a reserve and find it. You can go online and get it delivered right to your doorstep. It's already there.
Right. But I guess this would be the question that I would have for you. If it is, as you say, already there, Okay, and there are storefronts, and you can buy it online and be delivered right to your door. If it's already there, then shouldn't it just be legalized and regulated and taxed the same way cannabis is?
That's the thing, though, is because the people that are going out and looking for it on the black market, they have to make that extra effort to go out and do that. Whereas I think if it was recreationally available, now I've been to Toronto and they have the shops and the storefronts and stuff there, and it seems to be working fine. So, yeah, maybe it should be in low doses, kind of like how the LC deals out edibles. So the edibles at the NSLCs are very low dosage. Maybe that's how they should do it with the mushrooms.
Like microdosing or something. Okay, yeah, right. So overall, would you say the laws are too restrictive or too permissive as they are right now?
I would say they're too restrictive on marijuana and mushrooms, but too permissive on the hard drugs like cocaine, crack, methamphetamine, heroin. I don't think they should have safe injection sites. I think that just encourages a problem.
Okay. All right. Okay. Interesting. Thank you for your call, Sam. Glad we could fit you in today. Thanks for being a first-time caller. Great to hear from you. From Halifax to Cambridge, Ontario, Sean in Cambridge, Ontario. What's your opinion on the topic today, Sean?
Good afternoon. I think everybody's looking for simplistic answers. Should we legalize it? Should we not legalize it? I don't think you can look at it in isolation. I think we have to look at places like Portugal. If you're going to legalize the drugs, you need to have a program to support people. And I just don't trust our politicians to support the people. I think we would end up with a mess like we had in British Columbia. They legalized it, and next thing you know, we've got drug users all over the street. And that did not have to happen. It's just they did not provide the necessary supports for the people. That being said, I think we need to prosecute the traffickers to the fullest extent of the law, because the people that are actually taking the drugs, they have a mental health issue, quite frankly. Nobody chooses to check out a reality, I don't think. That's why so many homeless people take the drugs. Is to escape.
Okay, sure. Okay. Now, so because I just want to see, I keep track of people's answers because I want to see if there's a trend at the end of the show, if people are leaning one way or another. But just as it is right now, okay, we have legalized cannabis. Okay, we did that 8 years ago. There are calls for the decriminalization or legalization of magic mushrooms, or even, as you say, in British Columbia, decriminalize all drugs. The city of Toronto applied to do the same thing they wanted to do in British Columbia. Would you say the laws as they are right now are too permissive, or are they too restrictive?
It's hard to say.
You don't like to be pigeonholed like that. Okay.
Yeah, we don't really enforce the laws as they are, quite frankly, and we don't provide supports for people. It's a mess.
It's a mess. Okay. Well, if it's a mess, I think you would think that they're too permissive. That's what I would say. Okay. Thank you. That would just be my opinion. 1-833-668-2577. Alisar in Calgary. Alisar, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi there. What's your opinion on the topic?
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Yeah. I'm calling from Calgary. I'm a 21-year-old, so I might be a little biased. I understand both perspectives, but I'm on the side of it being too permissive. And yeah, I just feel like it's just too permissive. Like, we've moved so far from harm reduction that we're just neglecting public safety, I feel like, and accountability. And just looking at the next province next door, BC, I mean, we've been talking about it all day today. You look in Vancouver, you saw the open drug uses in the public spaces and stuff. It's affecting families. The kids are watching it, and they don't need to see that. It's businesses are getting impacted by that. It's just the overall sense, right, of that community. The safety of that community is just leaving Canada, I feel like, and that's not the Canada that I was born into, I feel like. And you still see all these safe use zones and whatnot, and addiction's still there. It's not lessening all the addictions that's happening in the country. I feel like you're enabling it more instead of helping them recover. And yeah, BC was just be the main thing. And I mean, like, even in Calgary here, you go down to downtown, you're in the Beltline, you could walk down the street, walk down Stephen Avenue, you're gonna see a handful of people out there with the crack pipe. And it's just crazy to me how it's just allowed, you know. I feel like any drug that's still illegal right now should remain illegal.
Okay. All right. Very interesting. Okay. Thank you so much for your call. I'm glad we could fit you in today. Alisar in Calgary believes the drug laws as they are right now are too permissive and doesn't want to see any new drugs legalized or decriminalized. Be back with more of your calls. It's Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
And welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. We've been talking about the drug laws in Canada, illegal drug policies, with the big question being, do you think the laws about the possession and consumption of drugs in this country, are they too permissive or are they too restrictive? What would you think if magic mushrooms were legalized the way cannabis was legalized some years ago? What would you think if all illegal drugs were decriminalized? They tried that in British Columbia. They've long wanted to do it in places like the city of Toronto, for example. They've applied. 1-833-668-2577. Let's get things going here. Ned up next. You're on the air, Ned. Hi there.
Hi. How are you?
Hi, Ned. I'm great. What's your opinion?
So I think most people that is supporting to legalize all the drugs, I honestly don't think they have kids.
Okay.
I don't think any parents want to see their children smoking crack or smoking meth or things like that. And going back to one of the speakers, you know, Toby, who's defending that, you know, there's freedom of choice, but I think there should be a clear line between freedom of choice and breaking the law. There is a reason why some of these substances should be illegal in other countries, right? And, you know, going back to one of the speakers, the guy that called in, his name was Toby, he said, people are going to find drugs if they're going to find drugs. I don't agree with that. Why do we have strict gun laws? So going back to, it's almost like someone saying, if someone's going to go find a fully automatic weapon in Canada, they're going to be able to find a fully automatic weapon. That's not true. Because if you get caught with a fully automatic weapon in Canada, you're going to jail for 10 years. If someone is caught with a gram of cocaine and they're going to jail for 10 years, no one will be selling crack cocaine.
Okay.
So I think it has everything to do with how loosey-goosey our drug laws are in Canada. And this is
you think they're too permissive as they are, right? You think they're too permissive as they are?
Totally.
Has it gone too far? Okay, totally. Okay.
That's why you're seeing tent cities everywhere. People are saying they're homeless, that's why they're doing drugs. No, that's not true. I would say 90% of the people that are on the streets right now living in a tent, they have some sort of substance abuse issues. Right?
Well, there may be substance abuse issues. There may be mental health issues. There may be childhood trauma issues. There may be people who have been rent-evicted. I mean, there are a whole host of reasons why people find themselves living on the streets, sir. They may be unemployed, may have suffered an accident and are disabled, and they're falling through the cracks of the social safety net. There could be all kinds of reasons why people find themselves in that circumstance.
Sure, I agree. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, if someone is supporting, you know, legalizing all substance, say crack cocaine, meth, fentanyl, then those people, if they're able to watch their children smoke some meth at home, then by all means support that law. But if you are not supporting, you don't want to watch your child start smoking meth or smoking crack at home, then they shouldn't be supporting this type of law.
Okay, understood, sir. Thank you for sharing your position. We'll see how many people agree with you and align with your view. Mark up next, calling from Calgary today. Hello, Mark. What's your opinion, Mark, on the topic today?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for taking my call. I'm actually calling from Halifax, but
calling from Halifax. Okay. It's a great town.
Yeah. It is a great town. All right. So I think our laws are probably pretty dead on. I think they could maybe be a little bit more permissive when it comes to certain substances. But what has been, I'm just going to reiterate what's been said by at least a couple people. I haven't listened to the whole segment, is with the enforcement. The enforcement is just not there. If when I really thought, when I really kind of was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Like growing up in Halifax and I was on our major street here, Spring Garden Road, and would have been about 6 years ago. And when I walked by and I saw somebody openly smoking crack in front of me, this isn't hyperbole. Police officers around, they did nothing. Nothing. Yeah. Didn't even talk to him. No, he wasn't causing any trouble. Yeah. He had a big smile on his face, but and my thing is I've had this sort of evolution. I'm a self-styled libertarian for the most part, but I think what a lot of libertarians leave out, they focus on the liberty part. Right? Okay, leave me alone. Do no harm. So where does it start? Except when it starts harming others, they start leaving that sort of convenient thing out. Okay, the person smoking crack, not harming somebody at this moment, but it can cause violent activity. Do you know what I mean? Okay, sure. Someone doing heroin or doing whatever. Okay, they drop their needles. So I think it's a very complex issue, but I have seen, not to be too negative, but I've seen my city deteriorate in the past, especially since the pandemic, and but even before, and I'm not blaming the police. There's only so many of them, right? There's, you know what I mean? But it's like, when you have to have, I don't have any kids, by the way, but, I have, the fact of the matter is when kids can't go to a lot of playgrounds without, worrying about stepping on needles, and it's just a terrible situation. So I don't know what the answer is. If I did, I don't know. I'd probably be premier or something. But there's got to be some sort of balance between public safety and these shooting galleries that they set up in BC years ago and all that. It's clearly, they've admitted, haven't they, that that's been failed? Hasn't EB basically? Oh
no! I don't think they would admit that it's a failure. I don't think they would admit.
They might not have said those words, but they've pulled back on some things over the years. Maybe not that government, but it was tried in Portland, Oregon, and it was a massive disaster there. So if you're going to do it, if you're going to give people drugs, you also got to give them the social support. You also got to protect the women and girls from being sex trafficked as well. So that's right, what I'm looking at now. I think it's a disaster to be too permissive, but just enforce the laws that are on the books, and hopefully things will be better.
Very good, Mark. Thank you for your call. We'll stop here. Hour number 2 of Talkback well underway and lots of time to fit you in. Why don't you join the discussion? We'll talk about illegal drugs. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Do you think the policies about the possession, the consumption of illegal drugs in this country, are they too permissive? The law is too permissive, or are they too restrictive? Up next, Marco in Halifax. Hi, Marco. Hello, Marco. Yeah, good to hear from you, Marco. What's your opinion here on this one?
Well, I'm going to have to say about the magic mushrooms, seen some crazy stuff, boy. Anything that's mind-altering is very dangerous, and you just see people walking around really stoned out of their minds. Those mushrooms are bad. As far as weed goes, 8 years ago, it would cost you $200 for an ounce of weed. You can now get it for $30 on the reservation. And the reservation Aboriginal stores, there's got to be 50 of them in Halifax. So you're paying $30 for an ounce of weed, and they're selling cartons of cigarettes for $30. Oh, I just don't. It's so available at such a cheap cost compared to 8 years ago. As far as the laws go, I think they're okay the way they are. I don't think them, those mushrooms are bad. Anything like that, it's just horrible. Homeless is horrible. Everyone is vaping now. You walk by, everybody is vaping now. And you walk by and you get that sweet smell, and it's a weed vape. And they're driving, and it's just a.
So you think it's gone too far, Marco? Do you think it's gone too far with the liberalization of drugs?
I don't. No, I don't think so, because when you get pulled over now, the first thing you say is, "Are you drinking or impaired?" And I say there's a lot of people that are being picked up for being impaired because everybody seems to be doing it. That vape is very is very popular, and it's cheaper, and you can vape the weed and the tobacco, and nobody knows what it is. But they are messed up. There's no question about that.
All right. So if they legalized mushrooms, you wouldn't want to. I don't want to put words in your mouth. No, absolutely not. Okay, Marco.
Mushrooms are very dangerous. Take care, Rob. Thank
you. You take care too. Toby has been waiting a while. Toby, sorry about the wait, Toby. Hi, Toby.
No worries, Rob. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Where are you calling from?
Calgary.
Oh, in Calgary. Okay, great. So what's your opinion here on the drug laws as they stand right now? Too permissive, too restrictive? What do you think?
I think they're too restrictive, personally.
Okay.
I mean, first off, we need to define what addiction actually is. And I think it's a chronic lifelong condition that involves compulsive seeking and taking of a substance or performing an activity despite the negative or harmful consequences. So people that are addicts are going to use regardless of what laws are in place or what's going to happen to them. They don't care. I was in active addiction at one point. I've recovered. I am sober for over 3 years now. It is one of those things, when you hit bottom, you have to find your bottom. You have to understand what that bottom is. The resources need to be there for you to understand that. So the more that we try to restrict stuff, the more people are going to do drugs. There's nothing that's going to change that. People are going to find it however they want to find it. There's, as much as you want to try and restrict it or criminalize it or put them in jail, they'll find more in jail than they'll find on the street. So bottom line is yes, it's way too restrictive. We need to put more money, more effort into programs that reduce harm. People say, well, I don't like these safe injection sites. Well, you complain about somebody using in public in front of your children, but wouldn't you rather them use in a place where they can at least have the harm reduction, at least have their drugs tested, at least have a place where you can be able to have those resources available to you to get out of addiction? So say you hit your bottom, you take that last dose and you hit your bottom in a safe injection site. I need help. Where can I get help? Well, sir, actually just so happens we have your help right here. So the more that we limit this and the more that we try and criminalize it and take it away from people and just deem them as addicts. I know many, many addicts. I work in the recovery community, volunteer, just help out. Right. I met many, many people that are absolute gems. Absolutely. And 3 years ago, were on the street homeless and completely destitute. And you'd look at them and wouldn't even give them the time of day. But I see them now. They're prospering. They're growing. They're becoming fully functional members of society. So to me, and this is just through the harm reduction that we have now. So to build upon that, why not continue this program, to continue these programs and put the money that you're going to put into criminalization into that? It only makes sense to me.
Okay. All right. Very interesting.
Right? Regardless of how they are people.
All right, Toby. I'm glad you stuck around. I know it was a bit of a wait today. Very popular topic. So thanks for hanging in there and sharing your opinion. Valuable one. And you can join the discussion as well as we talk about the drug laws in the country today and whether they're too permissive or too restrictive. What about the idea of legalizing magic mushrooms the way cannabis was legalized about 8 years ago? What if all illegal drugs were just decriminalized? They tried to do that in British Columbia, then did some backtracking. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. Talk back here, and great to be with you today. Hour number 2 as we talk about the drug laws in the country, whether they're too permissive, whether they're too restrictive. News article today suggests magic mushrooms should be legalized the way cannabis was legalized some years ago. I'd love to know what you think about that, or if all illegal drugs were just decriminalized. They tried to do that in British Columbia, of course. Mixed results, you could say. 1-833-668-2577. I believe we have Mike up next on the line. Hello, Mike. In Calgary. Hello, Mike.
I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. Hello?
Yeah, I hear you just fine,
now?
Mike. Yeah, I hear you just fine, Mike. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just on the highway driving. Anyways, so we look at the U.S., they have some pretty tough laws. That doesn't deter anybody. You look at China, they have really tough laws. They have the death penalty, in fact. That doesn't deter anybody. These
I think we're going to have to move along. We're going to have to move along, Mike. You're kind of dropping out there, Mike. You're kind of dropping out. So we'll just move along. You're kind of in a dead zone. If you get in a better cell phone reception, maybe a few more bars on that phone of yours, you give us a call back. Let's go to Waterloo right now. Speak with Ryan up next on Talkback. Hi, Ryan.
Hey,
Hi,
Rob.
Ryan.
How's it going? How you doing,
Ryan?
buddy?
Yeah, I'm great.
Good.
What's your
Wonderful.
opinion?
Thank you. Well, listen, I live in a town, Waterloo, as I mentioned, and I grew up in the house that I purchased. In the past 18 months, my children under age 12 have seen 2 people overdose. 10 cities pop up randomly. So the last caller that said that the United States is being tough on it and isn't doing anything, I don't believe it has been with the last administration. I think it's going to start to be. And I believe the definition of insanity was what again? Doing the same thing over and over again.
Over and over again.
Expecting a different result, right? So respectfully, I think we need to be harder on these people. We need to stop giving them an opportunity to shoot up in public places. Whose human rights are being infringed upon? Those who have chosen the drug route, or the children who don't have a choice, who are forced to walk past these places? So I don't have a solution. As the other gentleman said, I'd probably be the Premier of Ontario if I had that solution. But I do know this. Giving it to them or decriminalizing it is not the right solution. British Columbia, case in point. Portland, Oregon, case in point.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let's go to, we'll stay in the ROW, Cambridge. Nathaniel in Cambridge. Hi there.
Yeah.
Nathaniel.
Hello. I have 2 things to say. One is that they were made illegal for a reason, and we shouldn't forget that. And 2, I watched a YouTube short at least twice about how an experiment with a rat, and that rat was given 2 water bottles, one with normal water, one with like cocaine or heroin or whatnot, and the rat kept overdosing itself. But when it was put in with other rats, it didn't take the drugged water because it was with other people. And the point there was being that they are lonely or whatnot, and that's why they turn to drugs for bonding.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. You know, rats are not people, of course, but I see your point there. Now, I must ask you, just generally speaking, when you think about where we are with drugs in this country, okay, we've legalized cannabis, or calls to legalize magic mushrooms. British Columbia decriminalized many illegal drugs. Do you think the drug laws in this country have gone too far? Has it become too liberalized, too permissive? What would you say?
Well, I'm not very familiar with the laws, so I would say they are okay as they are.
Okay. All right. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you, Nathaniel, for your call, and we'll stop here, be right back, and take more of your calls. A very hot topic today. Lots of interest in it. Lots of calls. Love to see that. Join the discussion. Lots of time to fit you in on Talkback here on News Radio.
In the 660 Groundworks Traffic Center, I'm Michelle Yee. Well, we do have a new multi-vehicle collision. You're going to find the southbound Hereford Trail as you're approaching Glenmore Trail. It is in the right-hand lane, so do expect some heavy delays. Of course, eastbound Glenmore Trail, southbound Crowchild, also seeing that volume easing off as you're making your way around the reservoir. Still a little slow at the moment, and then do keep in mind in the northeast, we are clearing out an earlier multi-vehicle collision. This is on the southbound Hereford Trail to eastbound Stony Trail off-ramp. It is in the left-hand lane in the northeast. If there's any other problems you do come across, you can pass those off at 403-291-0066.
We'll hit a high of 31 degrees today under sunny conditions. Then we enter a chance for severe thunder showers on Wednesday. Northeasterly wind 30 to 40 kilometers per hour with a high of 27 and a low of 14. On Thursday, a lot of cloud cover expected once again. Showers are possible and storms as well. The high is 21 with northwest wind. And on Friday, we're back to sunshine with a high of 25.
Guten Tag. I'm Scott Reeb of Cupboards Express. I'm in Hanover, Germany, where we've come to see the latest in European style and technology. And we're bringing what we've learned back to Alberta, where we make the best cupboards in the world. And we're also bringing back some really good deals on the finest white oak and high-end hardware. Achtung! On top of our other promotions this summer, we're offering a free upgrade to the highest-end European hinges and drawer slides, and that's a wunderbar bargain. Cupboards Express.
Now, more than ever, it's important to support our fellow Canadians. Whether that's supporting local businesses or investing in your own goals, Capital Direct has been investing in Canadian homeowners for 20 years now, all with Canadian investment. Use your home's value so you can support your business, renovate your home, or simplify your debts. How would you use $80,000, $280,000, or even $2.8 million? Find out why Canadians trust Capital Direct. Call 1-800-NEW-CAPITAL today.
CapitalDirect.ca.
Oh, man, this elbow and shoulder pain is killing my swing.
You know, that was me until I started laser therapy with the physiotherapist at Alberta Laser Rehabilitation Center.
Laser therapy? Really?
Yep. Non-invasive, non-toxic, and it helped me get back on the course without pain.
Get back to doing what you love. Book your physiotherapy session today at Alberta Laser Rehabilitation Center. Book at albertalaserrehab.ca and get your life back.
Alberta had one problem, a dirty double-crossing energy company. They were taking folks for all they had.
There's no one who can stop us from screwing you over.
But then, out of the dust, came a new hero.
Sponsor Energy don't play no tricks. We got fair rates, no surprise fees, and every month we give back to the good folks in town.
Get unscrewed with Sponsor Energy. Just good old honest energy and local service. Visit sponsorenergy.com and switch your power faster than a high noon showdown.
Sometimes I feel a bit helpless with the state of the world, and it feels really hard to make an impact on people's lives. I donate because it makes me feel better to know that I can actually do something today to help people. Donating blood helps me feel like I'm making a difference in the world.
Canadian Blood Services. Experience what you get when you give. Book an appointment at blood.ca.
Bright sunshine day.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Are the drug laws in this country too permissive or too restrictive? Keeping track of your answers today. Alan in Calgary. Hello, Alan. Thanks for waiting. You're on the air. What's your opinion, Alan? Hello, Alan. Are you with me?
Hello, are you with? Can you hear me now?
I hear you now, Alan. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Right.
Love to know your opinion on the topic.
Well, legalizing the weed was one thing, right? I have a nephew who's a police officer, and he says he'd rather deal with someone smoking weed than they just want a bag of chips versus the guy who's really drunk and wants to fight. But legalizing mushrooms is taking it to a whole new level.
Okay.
People will drive intoxicated against, I'm dead set against that, having a drink and driving, what have you. People are going to do it. People drink and drive. People smoke weed and drive. The guy smoking weed's in the right lane doing 70 and 100 kilometer an hour zone. But if you're talking about legalization of mushrooms, you're now going to have drivers who are seeing flying monkeys dropping on the highways, and that's going too far. Okay. it's not something that should be legalized and available to anybody over 18 years old. And also, the decriminalization of these hard drugs is not our answer. Our answer is to get them off the street. It is killing our children. It is killing our friends. It is an absolute pandemic disaster we have going on with these fentanyl and opioids and methamphetamine and stuff. They need to be gone from society.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yep, I'm glad you shared it, Alan. Thank you. Ivan, up next. You're on the air, Ivan. What's your opinion, Ivan?
Hello.
Hi, Ivan. Yeah, hi, Ivan. Go ahead.
Hello. So I have 3 points. First of all, people should stop being hypocrites because this problem exists and it doesn't go away. And we either legalize or we don't legalize. People will be using these substances anyway. I used to work for one of the licensed producers of marijuana in Old, and I can say that government is stifling the legal producers, and black market absolutely not addressed. And while the illegal players have to pay a lot of in taxes and overhead costs, the illegal they just make all profit. And the other thing is instead of blaming everything on drugs, we need to address the social decay, cost of living, lack of opportunities for people, and all that social issues, support, mental health disorders support, and other things, while blaming everything on drugs. Drugs is a driver, and we need to be adult with that. But if we are not addressing the social decay, we'll see whatever substances used, it will be affecting people.
Right. So you're saying, you're making a case, and it's the same kind of case that was made in the run-up to the legalization of marijuana. People are doing it anyway. And the statistics showed that, in Canada, that was 4 million people using cannabis on a regular basis. 4 million people willing to break the law to use cannabis. The law didn't matter. People are going to say the same thing about mushrooms, for example. Well, people are going to do it anyway. Look, we have stores already. You can buy it online. Then the post office will deliver it for you, or a courier will deliver it right to your door. Right?
Everything is available right now.
Everything is available. So do you think the laws are too restrictive then? The laws are too restrictive? You do? Okay. All right. I'm glad I could nail you down. Thank you, Ivan. Very good. Yeah, I appreciate your opinion, sir.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
As we talk about the drug laws in Canada, illegal drugs. Are those laws too permissive or too restrictive? What if magic mushrooms were legalized the same way cannabis was legalized 8 years ago? Or what if all illegal drugs were decriminalized like they tried in British Columbia several years ago? 1-833-668-2577. Jared is up next. Hello, Jared. Hi, Jared.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Jared.
So I'm going to come up from a neutral perspective here, where there's so many drawbacks to, like, if we restrict it more, like the states, they have such a demonization of drug addicts that people lose their jobs and everything. They go to prison for a long, long time. And one consequence that we have up here in Canada compared to the States is the financial cost. Like, I think a gram of cocaine in the States is like $10. Up here, I've heard of it being like $140.
I would have no idea.
So person that gets, like, it's insane. People lose their homes over it. But if we make it more restrictive, it's going to hurt more financially if somebody gets addicted.
Okay.
But we can't just allow it to be open flowing, right? Like, we have laws on the books for a reason, but they aren't being enforced.
Okay.
And from a medical perspective, these studies will still be going on for 20, 30 years at least.
Okay. Well, let's think about, you say, well, there are laws on the books and they're just not being enforced. Well, one of the reasons, for example, in British Columbia, one of the reasons the drug laws weren't being enforced is because the federal government told the provincial government you don't have to enforce the laws. And if people want to possess meth and cocaine and heroin and use it in a public place, they're free to do so. And there was a rationale behind that. Of course, it didn't work out, and the big issue was public disorder, public consumption of those drugs. The drugs are still decriminalized. What the EB government did in British Columbia to try and crack down on things was that you just can't use them in public places. You can't use these drugs in parks and on playgrounds and beaches and all this public transit and in bus stops and wherever people were doing it. Did that go too far, in your opinion, the decriminalization of all drugs?
I'm definitely for it not being in public places, but then multiple people said that they have kids that have seen these people that are homeless and overdosing. And I bet you because of that experience, they're definitely not going to do any drugs because they're going to see what happens when you get addicted to it.
Right.
So there's always two sides to everything. And I'm glad we're having this conversation, but I'll leave that with you there.
Well, I thank you for your contribution to the conversation today, Jared. Yeah, very well done. Let's go to Brad in Waterloo today. Hello, Brad. What's your opinion on the topic?
Hey, how's it going, Rob?
Just fine, Brad. Great, thanks. Yeah, all good here.
I'm a strong believer that I think anything natural should be legalized. So mushrooms, I think there's more research that needs to be done on it, but I also do believe that there's a lot more benefits than harm when it comes to natural. Like anything that's chemically induced, like cocaine or heroin, where you have to add a chemical, should totally be banned.
Okay, so, like the opioids and meth and whatever, all of that should be banned, that you think?
Yeah, anything that can grow naturally, should be legal.
Yeah.
It was put here for a reason, right?
Yeah, gotcha. Very good. Okay, yep, thank you for sharing your opinion, Brad. And just like that, we've cleared the phone lines. All 5 phone lines are available right now. So if you've never called before, why not take the opportunity today? Or if we haven't heard from you in a while, let's get caught up. I really find the magic mushroom psilocybin angle to this story really interesting because, gosh, it is so reminiscent of the way the marijuana story rolled out and eventually ended up with the legalization of cannabis. And in fact, there is a rather large news story about this from the Canadian Press. Headline: Court battle over psilocybin-assisted therapy reaches turning point, advocacy group says. Let me read a little bit here. A nonprofit group that advocates for access to therapy using psychedelic drugs has won a legal battle in a years-long fight with Health Canada. One of the organizations believes it's far from over. There's an obvious societal turning point here, one where the public for sure, clinicians, and certainly parts of the government are waking up to the reality that psychedelics work, said John Gilchrist, Director of Communications, Therapsil. He goes on, quote, people are clamoring to use psychedelics, and many Canadians are just doing them in the quote-unquote underground, he said, noting that along with dozens of online retailers, there are brick-and-mortar stores in many cities selling magic mushrooms. And then this story quotes a researcher from the University of Ottawa who said, quote, I think what we're seeing now is an increasing willingness to look at other substances that have been, and I use this word deliberately, demonized over the decades as being illegal and dangerous and harmful, end quote. So when I read a story like that, what comes to mind is the pot story. There's a narrative taking shape. And the narrative in this particular story is don't be afraid of magic mushrooms. They've been demonized. And they have potential health benefits, therapeutic uses, and we should not be afraid if the government went ahead and decriminalized magic mushrooms. It sounds a lot like the stories that were in the news in the years, if not decades, leading up to the decriminalization of cannabis. And they're right in one regard. I can't speak for the rest, but Canadians who want to buy magic mushrooms, and we've heard it from our callers today, they don't have to look very hard. It's not like people now need to, know a guy who knows a guy, and then they go meet the guy in some parking lot somewhere and they do a street level drug dealer. Now you can just walk into a store, or you can just buy them online. But are we going too far if you were to do that? Legalize magic mushrooms or decriminalize all drugs, as they did in British Columbia. Share your thoughts. Be right back. We'll stop here and take more of your calls. And reload those phone lines here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We have been asking about the drug laws in Canada around possession and consumption of illegal drugs, whether the laws are too permissive, too restrictive. We've been asking for your thoughts on magic mushrooms. What if they were legalized the same way cannabis was legalized some years ago? Or what if all illegal drugs were decriminalized like they attempted to do in British Columbia before trying to walk that back? Let's go to Mike up next. Hi, Mike in Calgary. Hello. Yeah. Hi, Mike.
Hey,
go ahead.
So I don't think making stronger drug laws is going to stop people. You look at the U.S. and you look at China, people are still going to sell those drugs. Now, if you look at mushrooms, I have a friend, he has schizophrenia. He probably would have got by the time he was 35, but mushrooms brought it on by the time he was 22. You look at marijuana, they're doing studies. It has risk of heart, and it creates anxiety and it creates stress. I know this personally for the anxiety and stress because I smoked marijuana for over 30 years. You look at the fentanyl and the cocaine, we're not doing enough to stop it from coming to our borders. In fact, it's not wrong. Norm of cocaine,
Mike.
a kilo of fentanyl is $5,000. They're getting a kilo of cocaine back for $25,000 and selling it here. We're at our ports of entry to stop these chemicals to come in from China and India.
Okay, so all right. So just, if I could, what way are you leaning on this question though? Too permissive, too restrictive? It seems to me too restrictive.
Well, we're punishing all the wrong people.
Punishing the wrong people. Okay. That's interesting.
Like the homeless people that are doing these drugs, they're there for a reason. Like I have a friend who was abused by the Toronto Boys Home. He does cocaine and he does meth because of what happened to him in his childhood. So he doesn't know how to cope with it any other way. So we're punishing the people that are the addicts that have been abused when we need to be tougher on these drug dealers and the people bringing it into our country.
All well and good, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad we could fit you in. It was you were worth the wait, my friend. Call back anytime. Marlon in Kitchener, Ontario. Hello, Marlon. You're up next, Marlon.
Hi,
what's your opinion? I'm good, Marlon. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, I think that this problem is always going to be something that people are going to deal with all over the world. Quite frankly, the laws, both for consumers and for people that, sell and traffic drugs, I think could be a little bit better here in Canada, I could say. And also, especially for, a lot of drugs that are for recovery, like methadone and Suboxone and a lot of times people get on these maintenance drugs and they're on them for years, so I think a lot of the times they should limit the time that these people can get on these drugs. I understand every case is different, everyone's different, but allowing someone to be on that medication for 5, 10, 20 years is just another addiction, you know what I mean? Like you're just taking one thing into another.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a few questions while I have you on the line, Marlon. Okay, so we legalized marijuana 8 years ago. Do you think that was a good idea?
As a cannabis consumer, I think yes and no. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. But I mean, I think they're doing a decent job at regulating it. You know what I mean? Just like alcohol, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're not of age, you can't get into a store, ID, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do underage people still get pot in their hands?
Oh,
I mean,
yes, they do.
I'm sure they do. Just like back in the day in high school, you get, Uncle Bob to get you some beer, right? Like, it's just
whatever, yeah.
the way it is.
What would you think if magic mushrooms went the same way as cannabis? And there was, you went into the whatever.
I don't think
mushroom
it works
store.
the same way, but I think there's definitely could be a medical or like some kind of benefit to it. It's just, it's not this. It's just like pot. It's not the same as alcohol. You can't, some people can smoke a joint and, you know what I mean, have a normal conversation. And I don't think with mushrooms you could do the same. I don't think I could.
Okay. In British Columbia, they experimented with decriminalization. They rolled it back a little bit, not completely. And you could possess really hard drugs. What do you think about that? And the police wouldn't be able to touch you, What do you think about that, Marlon?
I mean, I definitely don't think that's a good thing. I mean, we're going to end up with similar scenes and places like we got going on in Vancouver, in the States, and like in Kensington, Skid Row.
Right.
Just,
you think that's a little too far? Okay.
I think so, and it's already happening. Like here in Kitchener, we got a place called Tent City. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it before. Or heard of it.
All the cities do, sir. Yeah, all the cities do.
So
unfortunately,
everywhere, right? So like it's already, we already have a taste of where we're going with this. You know what I mean? So it's definitely time to think about what we're doing and find another thing. And also, about a lot of times people don't realize, like what the gentleman said before, like, drugs that are from the earth and that are like a lot of people I think forget cocaine and heroin also come from, from poppy and from the coca leaf, you know what I mean? And like also a lot of medications that are useful for cancer patients,
Okay. Look, we've got to go. I really thank you. I thank you, Marlon. Yeah, with your opinion. Very important. Yeah, good perspective, sir. Thanks for the call. Be right back with a few more calls and some closing thoughts on Talkback on News Radio.
In the 660 Groundworks Traffic Center at Michelle Yee, well, the heaviest delays at the moment are northbound Deerfoot Trail. We are dealing with a collision on the Ivor Strong Bridge as you approach Anderson Road, so that is tying up the middle lane. Southbound Deerfoot Trail, as you're approaching Glenmore, clearing out an earlier collision. It is in the right-hand shoulder, but you're also slow through this stretch. And then in the northeast, southbound Deerfoot Trail on the on-ramp to Stony Trail eastbound in the northeast, we do have a collision in the right-hand lane. If there's any other problems, though, that you do spot out there, you can always pass those on at 403-291-0066.
Lots of heat today could create some issues tomorrow. Lots of sunshine for today, too, as our high hits 31 degrees. Your overnight low falls off to 16. Tomorrow's high is 27, but then we cloud over and run into a storm risk. There's potential for severe thunderstorms as well because of all that heat. Northeasterly wind there up to 40 kilometers per hour with a low of 14. On Thursday, mainly cloudy again. More showers possible. Another storm risk as our high hits 21.
Heard you hired Beyond Curb Appeal to build your deck.
Yep, composite, low maintenance, flawless install. Super impressed.
Nice. I got the do-it-yourself wood package from them. Saved enough to go bigger. Way bigger.
Okay, but I've got glass railings.
Pergola.
Privacy screens.
Wraparound stairs.
Mood lighting?
Buddy, sometimes it's just about size. My deck is bigger than yours.
Your what?
My deck.
Everyone's talking about their decks. Make yours the one they can't stop looking at. BeyondCurbAppeal.ca.
Get unlimited grocery delivery with PC Express Pass. Meal prep, delivered. Snacks, delivered. Fresh fruit, delivered. Grocery delivery on repeat for just $2.50 a month. Learn more at PCExpress.ca.
Representation in media is important.
There's a lot of people with disabilities that don't feel seen.
I'm a music producer. Having a disability, it's not really shown in the industry.
I make media representing women in wheelchairs.
AMI is a broadcaster that strives to change the way people think about disability.
I'm a very loud and proud deaf woman, and I want to be able to make a difference.
Watch inclusive and accessible content on AMI TV or stream now at amiplus.ca.
Measles outbreaks are occurring in Canada, including Alberta. These outbreaks are highly preventable. Measles is an extremely contagious disease that is spread easily through the air. The best way to protect yourself, your family, and your community is to ensure you are up to date with your immunizations. Don't get measles. Get immunized. Visit alberta.ca/measles to find out if you're up to date and what to do if you're not. A message from the Government of Alberta.
When your car's performance is on the line, there's no room for guesswork. Impressions Automotive. Skilled, trusted, relentless. From tune-ups to full repairs, let's make an impression on you and your vehicle. Visit ImpressionsAutogroup.com today.
This month's Real Estate Report is brought to you by CIR Realty.
Calgary's real estate market is showing signs of balance with more listings and slightly cooler sales. Prices have stabilized, creating opportunities for both buyers and sellers. It's a great time to explore your options in the Calgary and surrounding area housing market with your CIR Realtor.
This has been the CIR Realty Real Estate Report. We make real estate easy. Visit CIRRealty.ca.
Upgrade your bedding and save up to 55% at TSC on luxurious home suite 600 thread count Egyptian cotton sheets. Today's showstopper at tsc.ca.
CFFR AM.
A Rogers radio station.
660 News Radio Calgary. Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we've been talking about the illegal drug laws in Canada. That's our topic of the day. Whether you think the policies around the possession, the consumption of illegal drugs, whether they've gone too far, are they too permissive now, or are they too restrictive? Magic mushrooms has come up in the news today, as a matter of fact. People pushing for the legalization of magic mushrooms. And, of course, the decriminalization of all drugs, which sometimes comes up during conversations around this topic. Cam is in Calgary today. Hello, Cam.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, Cam. Great to hear from you.
What's your? I'm glad that got this topic going because I don't know whether it is legalization or whether it is, permissiveness of this drug. These drugs have such a negative effect on people, and when people take them, they just forget who they are. Walk naked on the street, break into people's houses, completely naked. And then when you do a case on them, people catch them. It's not that they don't. And when the case is there, they just run free because they are not charged for anything because they were not mentally there. So it is so disappointing to see that these things are causing so much damage, physical, mental, both.
So you think it's gone too far with
it has gone
access?
Way too far.
Way too far. Okay. Way too far.
These things were not there before, or if they were there, they were so little that people did not really know about them. Now they are free. Anybody can get them, and anybody can just go in the influence. And because they are under the influence, they can do anything they want and still run free without any charges. And nothing, even like no community service, nothing. The judge just let them go free.
Right. It sounds like you've had some maybe personal experiences in that regard, Cam. Would that be fair enough to say? Or you sure did? Okay. Yeah.
It's
You've had a negative experience.
There was another family who got involved, like breaking into one person's house, walking into another person's house, and then hiding in there, and police catching them there completely naked.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm glad we could fit you in at the tail end of our program today. Thank you so much for sharing your opinion. As I said, I have been keeping track, by the way, of your answers. I've just written down permissive or restrictive. It was very, very close. Some people wouldn't say one way or the other. I couldn't really nail them down. But in the end, of the 18 callers out of the 22 callers that we took today, people who really were leaning one way or the other, 10 said the laws have become too permissive, but 8 still said they think the laws are too restrictive in Canada when it comes to the drug laws in the country. So, not a big lean one way or the other. Very interesting. A topic I'm sure that will come up again. Join us tomorrow for Now You Know and Talk Back. More calls and more breaking news.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.